The palace didn't leak this. The palace didn't confirm this. But one detail buried deep inside royal reporting has suddenly thrown the entire Harry and Charles story into chaos. Because if this detail is true, then the biggest royal narrative of the past 6 years may not be what it seems at all. What if Prince Harry isn't as disconnected from King Charles as the world has been led to believe? What if some of the most controversial moves Harry has made recently were never rogue actions in the first place? And what if a hidden system operating quietly behind palace walls has been connecting father and son the entire time? The revelation exploded when reports emerged that Harry and Charles share access to something known inside royal circles as the Matrix. Not the movie, not a code name from a spy thriller, a real palace scheduling system that tracks the daily movements, meetings, appearances, and future plans of senior royals. Every engagement, every trip, every public appearance, everything. According to the reporting discussed in the transcript, Harry still has access to that information, and the king has access to Harry's schedule as well. And suddenly, a lot of strange coincidences don't look like coincidences anymore. Think about Ukraine. For months, critics claimed Harry was freelancing, acting independently, inserting himself into global affairs while the royal family tried to keep distance from him. Then came his highly publicized visit to Ukraine. The timing raised eyebrows immediately because it happened just before King Charles embarked on major international diplomatic activity. At first glance, it looked reckless. It looked competitive. It looked like Harry was trying to steal attention. But then something strange happened. Nobody attacked him. Not the newspapers that usually criticize him. Not the commentators who normally question every move. Not even the palace machine that has supposedly been holding him at arm's length. The silence was deafening. And in royal politics, silence can be louder than screaming. Why? Because according to the theory now circulating through royal circles, Harry already knew exactly what his father was planning. He knew where Charles was going. He knew when major speeches would happen. He knew the diplomatic themes that were about to dominate headlines. If both men had visibility into each other's schedules, then Harry's trip suddenly looks less like a random act and more like a carefully timed move. And once you see that possibility, everything else begins to look different. The Ukraine situation wasn't the only example. Observers started noticing something even stranger. Harry and Charles appeared to be discussing similar topics at suspiciously similar times. Statements, speeches, essays, appearances, different platforms, different audiences, yet the messaging seemed oddly aligned, not identical, not coordinated enough to be obvious, but close enough to make people wonder. Once is coincidence. Twice is interesting. 3 times becomes a pattern. And that pattern is exactly what has some royal insiders nervous, because the public story has always been simple. Harry left. Harry rebelled. Harry was cut off. The institution closed ranks. The door was shut. But what if that story is only half true? What if behind the scenes there has always been a channel connecting father and son? Not a dramatic reconciliation. Not family dinners and emotional reunions. Something quieter. Something harder to see. Information flowing back and forth. Schedules being shared. Conversations continuing despite public distance. That possibility changes everything. It means every supposedly independent Harry appearance suddenly becomes questionable. It means every royal speech might need to be viewed through a different lens. It means the gap between father and son may not be as wide as the world has been told. And perhaps most importantly, it suggests King Charles may still be pursuing something he has reportedly wanted for years, a reunion. Because throughout the discussion, one theme kept surfacing again and again. Charles wants Harry back. Not necessarily back exactly as things were, not necessarily back in a major royal role, but back. The reports describe Charles as emotional, sentimental, deeply attached to family despite all the public drama. Unlike others within the institution who prioritize structure and discipline, Charles reportedly continues to see Harry as his son before anything else. That creates a problem, a massive problem, because there is another person in this story, and that person may be standing directly in the way. Prince William. The contrast between father and heir could not be more dramatic. According to the reporting discussed, Charles is still looking toward reconciliation. William is looking in the opposite direction. While Charles reportedly sees opportunities for healing, William reportedly sees damage that cannot be undone. Damage linked to interviews, damage linked to documentaries, damage linked to memoirs, damage linked to years of public conflict that turned private family wounds into global entertainment. And if those reports are accurate, William's feelings are not fading with time. They are hardening, which creates the central mystery now haunting the monarchy. How can a father move toward reconciliation when the future king refuses to follow? How can Harry return if William refuses to open the door. And perhaps the most explosive question of all, what if the preparations for that return have already started? Because hidden beneath the headlines, beneath the speeches, beneath the carefully managed public appearances, something appears to be moving. Quietly, slowly, almost invisibly. A shared system, shared information, shared timing. Not enough to prove a reunion. What makes this situation even more explosive is that the deeper you look, the less it resembles a simple family feud, and the more it starts looking like a monarchy divided against itself. On one side sits a father who appears unwilling to completely let go of his youngest son. On the other side stands the future king, a man reportedly carrying years of anger, disappointment, and resentment. And caught between them is Harry himself, a prince who walked away from royal life claiming he wanted freedom, only to find himself seemingly unable to escape the gravitational pull of the institution he left behind. The reporting suggests that if Harry ever returns in any meaningful capacity, it will not happen because public opinion demanded it. It will happen because Charles made it happen. And that possibility alone is enough to send shockwaves through royal watchers. Why? Because many people have spent years believing there was no path back. They believed the Oprah interview closed the door. They believed the Netflix series locked it. They believed the memoir threw away the key. Yet suddenly, discussions are emerging about minor roles, symbolic positions, limited responsibilities, arrangements that could quietly restore certain privileges without fully restoring Harry to the royal fold. And that is where things become dangerous. Because once even a tiny door opens, the questions begin. If Harry gets one role, does he eventually get more? If he gains legitimacy, does that lead to greater public visibility? If he returns for official events, does security return? Does influence return? Does access return? Every answer creates 10 new questions. The public reaction could be explosive. Many royal supporters spent years defending the institution during the Sussex conflict. They accepted difficult decisions because they believed boundaries were finally being enforced. If those same people suddenly witness Harry returning through a side entrance, many will see it as betrayal rather than reconciliation. They will ask whether the rules ever truly applied. They will wonder whether everything they were told about consequences was merely temporary theater. But perhaps the most fascinating part of this entire story is the role of William, because according to the theory emerging from these discussions, Charles and Harry may not actually be the biggest obstacle to reconciliation anymore. William is. The future king reportedly views the situation through a completely different lens. While Charles sees family, William sees damage. While Charles sees possibility, William sees risk. While Charles looks backward toward repairing old relationships, William looks forward toward protecting the future monarchy. That difference matters because Charles is king today, but William is king tomorrow, and every decision being made now is unfolding under that reality. Imagine being Harry. You may have a father willing to listen. You may have private channels still operating. You may have occasional coordination taking place behind closed doors. But if the future king refuses to trust you, how stable can any return truly be? Any arrangement built today could face a completely different reality the moment the crown changes hands. That uncertainty hangs over everything. It explains why so much appears unofficial, why so much remains hidden, why nobody wants to openly acknowledge what may already be happening behind the scenes. Because the moment the public sees visible proof of cooperation, the entire narrative changes. The estrangement narrative weakens. The exile narrative weakens. The carefully maintained image of total separation suddenly becomes much harder to defend. And that brings us back to the mysterious detail that started all of this. The Matrix. A scheduling system sounds boring. Administrative, harmless, yet if the reporting is accurate, it may be the single most important clue in the entire royal saga. Because schedules reveal priorities, schedules reveal plans, schedules reveal intentions, and if father and son continue sharing those intentions, then the relationship may be far more active than anyone realizes. That does not mean a reunion is guaranteed. It does not mean William changes his mind. It does not mean Harry suddenly returns to royal duties tomorrow, but it does mean the story is still evolving, and that is what makes this so fascinating. Behind the public statements, behind the interviews, behind the headlines claiming everything is broken beyond repair, another story may be unfolding quietly in the background. A father trying to keep a connection alive, a son trying to find a path home, a future king standing firmly in opposition, and a monarchy attempting to hide a division that grows harder to conceal with every passing month. The question now is not whether tensions exist. Everyone knows they do. The question is whether Charles's determination to rebuild bridges can overcome William's determination to keep them burned. Because if Harry eventually returns in any official form, storm, even a small one, it will confirm what many people have long suspected, that beneath all the drama, all the outrage, and all the years of public conflict, the story was never truly over. It was simply happening out of sight. And if the signs are pointing in the right direction, the next chapter could be the most controversial one yet. The schedules are still being shared. The signals are still appearing. The speculation is only growing louder. And somewhere behind palace walls, decisions are being made that could reshape the future of the royal family in ways the public has not yet fully imagined.